that it? We're going?
We're live. Where's Brent?
We're live.
What have you done with
I
Brent?
don't know. Oh, he couldn't make it. So they've given me the keys to the vehicle this morning. So welcome Des. How are you doing?
I haven't been feeling all that well the past couple of weeks, I have to say. But I'm feeling better now that we've got Matt on board. Welcome back, Matt.
Hey team,
Welcome,
happy
Matt.
to be here.
How are things going with you, Matt?
You're great, real good actually. I'm just on a bit of a 6-week vacation, but life's good.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Yeah. So sadly, Mr. Brenton Harrison can't make it this morning. So, like I said, he's handed over the keys to us three, and we'll see how this goes. I'm just wondering, when was the last time you were on the show, Matt? Can you remember? It's been a good few months, hasn't it?
Yeah, it'd be 6 months, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was to replace me, wasn't it? I think you were.
Yes. Replace is a strong word.
No, oh well, we'll see about that. And Des, what you been up to the last few weeks?
Oh, mate, just typical boring me. But yeah, I've been not feeling so great. I can tell you a bit about that now if you like.
No, I'd love you to. Yeah.
So I've got a bit of a sore throat, and so I don't think I'll be my normal talkative self this morning. But I've recently been diagnosed with a new virus. It's called influenza. And it's this new highly contagious virus strain known to spread through podcasts. And symptoms include relying on the information in podcasts when it's not intended as professional advice. The real concern for me, though, is that influenza can remain dormant in listeners. So many of our listeners may already be infected without knowing it. And for this reason, please ask your podcast host whether taking things less seriously is right for you. This episode may contain traces of opinion, humour, sarcasm, and loosely held professional judgment. Authorities are advising that relying on it could leave you exposed to viral infection. So be warned.
Des, how do you come up with these?
I don't know what you're talking about. This is a genuine health announcement.
But what motivated you to come up with, I mean, clearly you've got a conscience. We know that. We've known you for a number of years now. You've got a conscience. Is this just basically for the good of humanity that you do these things?
I just want to help people out and be kind and get the information out there. But speaking of getting information out there, we've got this banner that says "Confident under supervision, error, no supervision available."
Yeah, yeah. I think that my induction was pretty rushed last evening into this, so I'm not fully capable yet. But because there was no supervision available, we just thought, what the hell? What's the worst that can happen? So here we are without supervision. Just one last thing, Des, before we move on and spin this wheel, is how are book sales going?
Pretty good for June. Someone bought 8 copies in one go. So whoever that was, thank you. I've got no visibility over who's doing it, but really grateful for that. That's pretty cool. And obviously their investigations are going to improve out of sight. So it could be you. If you haven't bought the book yet, it could be you.
Personally, I think it's if I bought 8 copies out, I would want anonymity as well. But anyway, let's crack on with this. We've got a spinning wheel somewhere. So once I've we've got a few comments coming in as well. Best disclaimer yet, Des, from Rob McCauley there. I've got a spinning wheel somewhere in here. I can't find the damn thing. There it is. Okay, let's get this spinning wheel. Are we ready to spin this wheel, gentlemen? It's absolutely rammed with interesting tidbits and questions. Let's do it.
Anything's possible. Let's do it.
Hold on, I know what's gone wrong there.
Yeah, here we go.
There we go.
So behaviour-based safety, helpful or harmful?
I'm just going to write that down because I'll forget.
That's a sensitive topic in some circles.
Helpful or harmful?
It's quite a divisive topic. You're either all in or all out, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, the way people talk about it. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to move a little bit away here from Brenton's usual approach, which probably won't surprise most of our usual listeners. And I think I'd like to start by maybe talking to you guys a little bit about defining some of the key terms we've got here. So it might somewhat stymie the conversation later on when we realise that the conclusion is that we should have defined things earlier on, but let's give it a go. So behaviour-based safety. Matt, have you come across behaviour-based safety? Have you been involved in behaviour-based safety at all? What's your understanding of it and about it?
No, I've been involved in a business that tries to embrace it. Yeah, for sure.
So can you tell me what your interpretation of it is, rather than, sort of take a step back, Matt. Take a step back.
Well, it depends how far back you're going to go. Are you going back to the industrial age where there was one job then another, and we're in a production line, and then if I make a fault, it affects everyone else.
Let's do that.
Also created by bad people and the bad apple theory. And
keep going. This is great.
Yeah, it's not. I'll go straight to my opinion, because you can talk for hours on what it is or what it isn't. But my opinion is that it doesn't suit the modern day context of work. Work is no longer a majority in a production line like the industrial age. It's complex and complicated, and there are many ultimate factors, and people don't behave in a vacuum. Okay, we behave related to our external inputs and our external environment. And I suppose being in the contracting game for the last 12 years, on an asset that's threaded through society, behaviour-based safety, it doesn't ultimately have a place in that we've got such a variable work environment. But I suppose that's my starter for 10.
That's nice. I like
that. One quick comment. I didn't know that you could do it, Des, but how amazingly you've just drummed up your readership by saying you've got a safety transmitted disease is the first thing you said.
That was a fantastic summary of behavioural-based safety too, and your view on it.
Brilliant. Well, that was a great show. Thanks, guys. God, there's over to you. I know that you actually have very strong feelings on this, because we have spent, when I say we, I have spent quite a lot of time listening to you rabbit on about this.
Yeah, I do, and I'm coming from a place where I've worked under it, and also separately tried to implement it as well. Like been required to implement it. So I've been the subject of a behavioral-based safety observation, and I've also had to conduct behavioral-based safety observations. And
so could you just step back a bit, Des, and then give us a bit of context around that, about what is behavioral-based safety? I mean, just can you give us that sort of what your take of it is?
I'm probably not going to be able to do that very well, but it's the idea that you can influence behavior to get safer outcomes, and that it's probably predicated on the belief that people are, and this is where I struggle with it, and I'm happy to be corrected on this, but it seems to be predicated on the belief that people are motivated by carrots and sticks, and that you can influence behavior in that manner by observing it and providing feedback, and this achieves safer outcomes. And I don't think that's how it works.
That's interesting. So if it's based on carrots and sticks, well, from obviously we all come from very different backgrounds. So I come from an education background. So when we teach young people, but I guess teach anybody, that's sort of one of the ways in which you do teach people, is that you reward, you observe, you feedback. It's that feedback loop. So as a teacher, that's really what you're doing. You set somebody a task, you watch them do the task, you give them some feedback, and that helps them improve. And I'm thinking particularly here around motor skills. So I was a physical education teacher. So to get people to kick a soccer ball correctly, to get people to kick a rugby ball better, that's how we do it. So I don't think there's necessarily a problem with that process. It sort of works. But is it a case that we're applying that sort of philosophy to something that doesn't suit it?
Well, I got a quick question before I answer that one. But did every student respond to it?
Yeah, because otherwise they got the whack.
So it worked. It worked for every student.
I think if you're giving people the correct feedback and they want to get better, that's the key thing. If they want to get better, then it works really well. The problem is when people don't want to get better or they don't care, which I think is perhaps where you're heading with your thinking.
Yeah, or that the motivation for someone doing something can't neatly fit within a carrot or a stick paradigm. Yeah. There's other motivations, and that might come across as disinterest in trying to do it right, but it might actually be some other legitimate reason. It could be a cultural thing that you don't know. You don't know until you've really spoken to the person.
Yeah. So Matt, when you started talking, you started sort of gave the potted history of the Industrial Revolution in about 10 seconds, which was very, 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 very impressive. And you sort of talk about the complexity of life now compared to the simplicity of a production line. I mean, I know you're very well read in safety. Would this evolution that you're describing also be reflected in sort of safety theory as well?
Well, it could be. As part of defining something properly means understanding its roots. I may have read a few books. I'm not what the heap was for the Fraggle Rock with the all-knowing garbage heap that had all the information. I wasn't.
Not for a second was I comparing you to a character in Fraggle Rock. I mean, the fact that you drew that conclusion is somewhat alarming. But in terms of the number of books read by you being present and Brenton being absent has gone up significantly. Basically by the number of books that you've read. So no, where I was thinking was in terms of moving away from the sort of single causation models, the bad apple, the accident proneness, right the way through to multiple causation models. Would you say that behavioral-based safety sits better with the earlier models than these sort of more recent models?
I think it sits better with Taylorism and one best method or one best way. But for that to be true, I don't live in that time, though. We live in a time where work is complicated and complex. So, and I go back to that because if you're going to define something, you've really got to understand the context of how it's being used. And it's not the majority of work anymore. So why is it relevant? What happened there?
It's all right, you're back now.
Okay, I'm back.
Yep,
you're back. There's a bit of a glitch. Yeah, so how are you? What's the constant you're anchoring it into? Are people with all the same?
Oh, no.
Then how is it relevant?
We lost you for a second there, Matt.
Hello?
You might have to repeat that point if you can still hear us.
Hello, you're back. You're back.
Sorry, team. I don't believe it's relevant for today's context because you've got to base whatever your outcome is on a constant, a foundation of something. Now, are people all the same? No. Is work all the same? No. So what are you basing it on as something that's applicable to today's work?
Nice.
Very fair point. Nice. Yeah, totally.
So can you talk, Des, so you've experienced this, you've lived this. Can you talk me through a little bit what it was like? Like if I was watching this happen, because some of our listeners might not have never been involved in anything like this. So, if I was just stood there watching what you at work in an organization that's embraced behavioral-based safety, what would I be seeing? What does it actually look like?
So what it was is you'd have someone, let's say for the sake of an example, you've got someone operating a forklift or arranging pallets or something like that. And so you'd have the operator and they're the person being observed, and you'd have some other person who's conducting a behavioral-based safety observation. And you would check out all the different criteria. Are they wearing the correct PPE? Are they, operating in a safe manner? Are they looking about themselves to see if anyone else is in the area? All of these, have all the controls that they've nominated been put in place? And you give feedback after the observation and say, I'm really impressed with the way that you wore your PPE for the duration of the task, and the way you manage the controls. But I did notice there was a gap in your exclusion zone that needs to be fixed, and maybe we could make it a bit higher. So the idea is that you're giving this feedback in the same instance. The issue that I have with it is that the observations were never undertaken in a situation where it's completely the person being watched knows they're being watched. So obviously they're conducting themselves in a manner that's going to satisfy the expectations of the person doing the behaviour-based safety observation, who is usually management. And the person doing the behaviour-based safety observation is a person who is probably, it's an awkward process. You've got to stand there and watch someone and assess how they're doing it, and do it in accordance with the criteria in the form. And it's awkward socially. So it's a really artificial situation that the observation is taking place in, and the outcome is pretty artificial and meaningless in my view.
It's interesting because what you've described there is effectively what you would see from a high-level coach in sport, is that you watch the athlete perform a certain part of their role, and you would watch it, and then you would give them feedback as quick as you can. I mean, the speed of feedback is hugely proportional to the amount of improvement that can be shown. But when you put it into that context, like Matt indicated, that's a really precise thing. You're looking at, in tennis, for example, you're looking at a forehand shot. Like, it's a really precise thing. There's no other complexity around it. It's a very simple motor skill, and it works for that. But as soon as you indicate there that there's lots of other things, they're not just looking at one aspect. They're not like just looking at you are holding the steering wheel correctly. Give them some feedback on the steering wheel. It's a much broader feedback than that. And I can see that can start to become problematic because you're bringing in a whole heap of complexity. So in these programs, when people launch these programs, is the capability provided to the assessors or whatever? Like, what does that look like?
Well, the training does occur on how to conduct one of these observations, but I would suggest that it's basically training in how to give feedback based on your observations, and I would suggest that if you can't do that already, you probably shouldn't be in a leadership position at all. But it's just in this contrived situation, and I think it'd be much more natural just to have a person come through, have a conversation with someone, and say, "Hey, I really like how you're working, and I think there's an opportunity for improvement here, and let's work together to improve that particular aspect, and let's move on." The other aspect that I think I don't like about it is everything within that behavioral-based safety observation was about the person's behavior, which inferred that all the processes that they were working under were workable, were effective. So there's this inferred assumption that nothing about the system needs to change. It's all about their behavior. And I'm not suggesting that behavioral-based safety operated in isolation of system improvements, but that process on its own made some assumptions about people, and it made some assumptions about the system, which I think could be proven false.
It's worse than that. It's worse than that in the fact that if everything goes right, the system is great. If something goes wrong, well, it's the person that did this. It's the bad apple. It's the fault in the flaw in humanity. If it truly worked, how many times have you seen him as a consultant, Andy, someone do a positive ICAM? What's that? Wow. What, are we using an investigation tool to figure out why humans were the greatest adaptable thing in that work package? No.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably there's a whole other show there. I mean, that's quite an interesting point. But you're right, Des. It seems to isolate one aspect of a complicated system, which seems unfair, because unless you take into the context of the behavior, you can't just address the behavior. You know, people behave in a certain way because of the pressures and situation and tasks that they're exposed to. And we all know that. I mean, you behave differently. in different occasions, right? So, on this show you hardly speak, but then when we go to the pub, you never shut up, and it's not about, we wouldn't fix that through doing a safety behavior-based safety observation.
Are you suggesting I get liquored up before the show? Is that what you're saying? It's a bit early in the morning for that.
I wasn't suggesting that for a second, but it's how do you fix that? Well, you would look at what the differences are, right? And if the difference is booze, then we give you booze. Now, the booze isn't changing your behavior. The provision of booze is changing the condition that allows you to behave in that way. So it's the provision of a thing. So when the wheel spun, it came up behaviour-based safety, help or hindrance or whatever it was there. Can it be more negative than positive? Like, can it lead to some? If you decide to do behaviour-based safety and you do it, and then you come out the other end, can it be worse than when you started? And what would worse look like?
Yes, it does. It can be worse.
Brilliant. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, I'll try and be balanced, to be fair. One positive. One positive about it is it forces an interaction between what is perceived to be leadership and then frontline. And if those interactions are done well, or at least the opportunity to have one, that's positive. The negative can be if we're just looking at the human in the equation again, where we may be missing like a critical control flaw, because we assume that the system is fine and the system is okay. And then we have that negative hallelujah moment where the whole thing blows up and we don't understand. And then we immediately think, oh, who made that mistake? No, it misses a trick. It misses an opportunity to really audit or check the system because it's focused on the human.
So then at the end of I don't know, you've brought it in, you've tried it for a year. How would the organization be different if it wasn't successful? Would it be worse? I mean, you indicated that it would be worse, but what would be worse about it? Would the culture have dissolved? Would there be lack of trust? What sort of things would be the outputs of that?
Okay. Wow. Worse would be the missed opportunity. There's a missed opportunity for a real conversation around critical risk controls and how the people are the adaptable piece to be harnessed for the solution, and the people are not the problem in this whole discussion that we have on behavioral based. People are not the problem to be fixed. They're the solution to be harnessed. They're the ones with the experience, the knowledge, the intelligence. It would be worse because it demeans the value that they have really inside their system to make positive change. Again, my opinion.
Yeah, what do you think of that, Des?
Yeah, my sentiment's similar. Not 100% the same, but I think we land in the same place. It takes the humanity out of the conversation. And I think that there's a question in the chat. Would you say that using the 4Ds is a form of BBS? Probably not, because the 4Ds is a conversation starter as far as I know. But the behavioral-based safety observations, I believe, is something different, where you're not really having a conversation, you're just observing and giving feedback. And I think that any process that takes the human out of that process is not going to do well. I think just two humans having a conversation and trying to gain understanding is the way to go if you really wanted to understand work as it was happening, and work as it was being experienced by the worker. Some contrived artificial situation is probably not going to achieve that. There was a podcast episode on the safety of work where they discussed a paper. They discussed BBS, and there was a paper that they quoted, which I can't recall off the top of my head.
I've read that paper. I know the paper you mean.
Basically, the conclusion, if I remember correctly, was that behavioral-based safety can be effective if it's for a specific purpose over a specific period of time. So maybe, for the sake of an example, you might have a behavioral-based safety campaign to increase the use of wearing correct gloves over the course of the next 3 months in a particular factory, and it's been shown to be effective in those circumstances. As a general thing that you do every day as part of your normal health and safety system, the evidence does not support it being effective.
Yeah. So again, like many things in safety, it's a tool. that, if used correctly, can provide some benefits, but if used incorrectly, it can cause carnage. Would that be a fair assumption? Because I think from a teaching perspective, there's nothing wrong with the process. If you use that sort of feedback loop process, it works really well if it's done well in a precise situation. But when you start applying it across much broader, sort of really broad brushstrokes, it stops to work as effectively. So the question then is obviously behavioral-based safety was put in place to improve safety performance. If we're not going to do BBS, what are we going to do? Matt, over to you.
Well,
good question, that one.
Yeah, go for it, mate.
Great. Would it be fair to say then that?
Well, I mean,
So would it be fair to say that the improvements in safety come from fixing a system rather than trying to fix people? Is that fair?
Yep.
So then if you're going to make improvements,
I think so.
So if you're going to make improvements, and let's use the 4Ds as an example, because it's 4Ds, I think, is described as a scaffold for a conversation. For those people that go to the front line, maybe get a little bit lost and need to ask some pointed questions to really find the answers they should be asking for, the 4Ds is because it gives a little bit of a scaffold to have that conversation when you might be a little bit nervous that you don't know anything, and gives you the freedom to ask those questions based on those 4D words. I think if we had a little bit of the intention of behavioral-based safety to figure out how adaptable our people must be to try and make business work the way the business wants it to work, while also auditing and checking the systems and the system strength and what our critical controls are, I think we would be in a much better place. I feel personally that behavior-based safety leans on people being the problem too much, and I don't like it.
Nice. He's good, isn't he? He's good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling this. My standard position's under threat here.
I doubt it.
What about you, Des? What do you think? How do you do it? If you're not doing BBS, how do you improve safety?
Well, I kind of mirror Matt's sentiment about if you're not improving the system, you're not improving much at all, because, I gave the example of a forklift operator. That guy's going to go on annual leave. So if you've tried to change his behavior, has that achieved anything for the person that's going to cover him while he's on annual leave? It hasn't, because that's a completely different person. So I'm very much on the side that system improvements is what the aim of the game should be. And I don't think that you're going to get good information from a behavioral-based safety observation as I described it, because it's a contrived artificial situation. Yeah. Sitting down and talking with people, person to person, having a humble, curious conversation is the best way to find out information about what that person's doing and taking a genuine interest. And if you're just observing and then giving feedback, not only are you making assumptions that your system's excellent, you're also making assumptions that you know how to do that job better than that person that's doing it. And that's not always the case either. So I think there's a degree of humility that needs to be a part of this process and a part of the conversation as well.
It's interesting. I get this sort of have conversations in this space a lot of the time, and one of the things that interests me is the use of the term "the system," improving the system. But what does that actually mean, and who owns the system, and how do you improve a system? Because the system is created by people. So is that really any different than looking at an operation or an operator? You're still looking at people. So instead of doing the BBS on your forklift operator, should you be doing your BBSs on your managers?
If it's something that you subscribe to, there's no reason why you wouldn't apply it up the food chain as well as down the food chain. But obviously it never happens that way.
No, but I think it's too easy to blame the system for things without actually analysing what the system is. And who is responsible for the system?
Well, how can you know what the system is when you're continually looking at the people and not the system?
Yeah, but if you look at the system, so if I'm looking at a system, what am I looking at, Matt? Like if I'm looking at a person, you can tell, look at that person, I can actually do it. Yeah, there's a person there, open your eyes, look at it. If you say, Andy, don't look at the person, look at the system, what are you pointing me to? What are you getting me to look at? What's the tangible outcome from that?
Well, if we're going to break it down so it's easily understood, can we make it a maths equation? So can we say the system is the environment plus the people equals an outcome? Yeah, because behavior is actually an outcome. So behavior matters, but behavior is an outcome of a system that people work within. Most effective organizations improve both worker choices and the conditions that shape those choices. So I took some notes while we were talking, just so I could get out what I meant.
That's cheating, Matt. We're not allowed to do that.
But does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. So in your equation, who are the workers?
What?
So are the workers everybody engaged in the organization, or are the workers the operators?
Okay,
because
good question.
I think all too often the workers are just, when people say workers, they talk about operators. They exclude the management from that. Now, if you bring management into it, I think the equation looks a bit different.
Well, I think it does. And why don't we make that equation really real and introduce subcontractors as well? So it should be every person involved in shaping every person involved in shaping the conditions that lead to a decision made by the workforce, leading to the outcome, whatever that outcome may be.
So if we go down that route, so there still needs to be a decision maker, right? Unless we've gone for a pure democratic organization. So at some point you've got to come back to a person making a decision. And if that person's a worker, shouldn't you treat that same person with the same sense of justice, I guess, for want of a better word, as you would an operator? Like, why don't we look at, when we talk about workers, we talk about operational staff, why don't we look at management leaders through the same lens? Because we tend not to.
Often there's an assumption that the leaders and the bosses know what they're talking about, because otherwise they wouldn't be in their position.
Yeah, no, I love where you're going there, Matt.
No, I think you and I are scrapping over the vegetables on the plate. You're saying decision, I'm saying choice. I think we're saying the same thing. I'm talking about trying to make sure that the environment that leads to the choices that are made by that employee being assessed, scriptable, and designed to create the outcome that the business wants. Aren't you saying the same thing?
I think possibly am, but I'm trying to pin it down, because the system is, I think often the word system is used quite comfortably, because it's not a person. But the thing is that the system is created by a person. So I think when you say the system's to blame, it's like, well, that's just a cop-out, isn't it? Because the system's created. The system just doesn't exist. Someone's made that system.
No, so I'm not saying the system's to blame. I'm saying that the system...
I'm not saying that you're saying that. I'm saying that's commonly what I hear, is that it's the system's fault.
I suppose I'm requesting an even distribution of attention. So as much as we look at why the person chose the choice of the decision or the outcome that they arrived at. No, so hang on, let's go backwards. I'm trying to say that the environment is truly important and people don't make decisions in a vacuum.
Yes, absolutely.
So if we're going to make work better, we need to make the choices, or make it easy for people to make the right choice.
Yes. So how do we make it easy for the leadership to make the right choice?
We define what safety is.
I love it, Matt. You've got the job. What do you think about that? What's your take on that, Des? What do you think?
Well, I think it's much the same. But you asked for what it would look like if you focus on improving the system rather than improving behavior. And going back to my forklift example, you might observe that the person is not wearing their hard hat while they're operating the forklift. And you might sit down with them and go, I noticed you're not wearing a hard hat. Could you help me understand what's going on there? And maybe the hard hat is uncomfortable. Maybe it fell into a dirty place, and their cultural belief is that they don't want to put dirty things on their head.
Absolutely.
Maybe there's maybe the hard hat's not even required on a forklift because you're sitting underneath a protective cage, and maybe the person's too tall, and when they're wearing a hard hat, the extra height causes them to hit their head on the top of the forklift when they get in. So the first thing they do is take their hard hat off. All of those things can be improved with a system improvement, and a system improvement will apply to any operator, not just that person. And that's where the value lies in system improvements, in my mind.
Yeah, I see where you're going with it, but I still think we're often a little bit unfair on leadership, in that the leadership are the owners and creators of the system. But how do we make it easier for them? If their responsibility is to make it easier for the workers to make better decisions, how do we make it easier for the leadership to make better decisions? And I think that's
get them out there understanding the work in a non-contrived situation.
Absolutely, which is exactly what behaviour-based safety isn't. That's my understanding of your conversation, Des, and what you were talking about.
Yep.
Cool. It's got a bit heavy, that, didn't it? Where's Brenton when you need him? Cool. So I guess we'll just go around and we'll sort of wrap this up a little bit. So, behaviour-based safety, help or harmful? Des, what do you think? Final words.
Well, mostly harmful, because I've never seen anyone do it, in my limited experience, never seen anyone do it effectively or to achieve any sort of meaningful outcome from it. But I'm really curious on your view, Andy. Where do you sit on this? Because you've been playing the fence sitter all day. So where do you sit?
Safety Switzerland.
I wondered how you've done well, guys, to hold back this long. I've never experienced it directly firsthand like you two have, as such. I think, like many things, I think there's a place for these things, and I think what we do in safety is often we use tools incorrectly, and then completely discard them. I think there's lots of examples of that. I'm just doing some critical risk work at the moment, and I'm reviewing a whole heap of bow ties, and I love bow ties, but people's misinterpretation and misuse of them is staggering. And I think that's possibly what's gone on here. That I'm not necessarily against behavior-based safety as it's been described by you guys. I think the principles of it are okay, but I think the application has probably been completely wrong. And I think the sort of feedback loop that it really is works really well in a really narrow field, which reflects that paper that we both read, Des. But I think when you start to take a more scattergun approach with it, it's just not going to work. And a lot of the feedback thing, there's a real art and a real skill to observing and providing feedback. That's why top sports coaches charge a fortune. There's a real skill to it. And the thought that you can take someone that's never done that sort of thing, give them half a day's training, and suddenly they'll be great at it is hugely problematic. And if you don't give feedback in the correct way, it can become a weapon. It can be weaponized. And I think from some of the conversations I've had about this previously is that's what's ended up happening, is that the whole thing's been weaponized, and it's ended up becomes legitimized bullying. And I can absolutely see how that could happen. But yeah, I'm not overly enamored with it, but I think it's possibly a tool. I wouldn't throw it out with the trash, but I think selective use might not be a bad thing. How did I go, Des? Was that all right?
That's good. I just question your analogy there with a coach, because a coach is in a coaching position because they have been there and done that, and they know it exceptionally well. Whereas that's not necessarily the case with the manager.
Not necessarily. Like there's a different. I mean, one of my tutors at university, he did a lot of work with golfers, but he was a terrible. He never played golf. Well, he was a biomechanist. He understood bones and stuff. So he did a lot of really specific coaching from that. So but again, I suppose he is tapping into his field of expertise. Yeah, I get. Yeah, I bow to your greater knowledge there, Des. You're right. I'll shut up now. Cool. So, Des, so what I'm getting from that is basically you think it's a massive hindrance. It's not a good thing.
I haven't seen it operate effectively in my limited experience, and
Cool.
yeah, that's my view in a nutshell. Let's hear from Matt.
Have you drank from the same Kool-Aid as Des, Matt?
I think similar to both of you. I haven't seen it worked well, and examples of that would be when a business is not resourced properly to do an investigation and finds it easy just to point the finger. I think that comes from a place. It comes from a place where the business doesn't understand how to use the tool. I think it could be used in balance with other things that look at the system, and in balance with, are we investigating the positives? Because most of the time a business will effectively deliver what they need to. And do we understand those critical recipe pieces for that outcome? And if we don't, maybe there's a tool that is not behavior-based safety that needs us to help find out what those ingredients are.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Cool. So those of you that are listening, hopefully we've answered that question. I think we're generally a little bit down on behavioral-based safety. We think there may be some positives in it, but we've never witnessed them firsthand. So as we wrap up the show, Des, what you got on for the next couple of weeks? You're studying hard still, or?
Yeah, nothing interesting for me, but I love the current comment from Corinne Wright. There seems to be a lot of safety chat on this podcast today. When is Brenton coming back?
Honestly, I'm actually catching up with Corinne in the next half hour. Words will be said.
I'll take that as a vote of confidence. Thanks, Corinne.
When is Brent coming back? Do we know?
Brenton?
Yeah.
It might be 2 weeks, but it might be not for 6 weeks.
So we've got Matt.
He's got a very, very hectic schedule over the next while. And he's just, I mean, part of me's thinking he's become too important for us, Des. I think he feels he's outgrown us. But
you're not doing much for Matt's confidence here. Matt, you've been a great addition on the show. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love this show.
Matt, what are you up to next week? Next couple of weeks? What are you up to? Bit of hunting, maybe?
Yeah, a bit of hunting, maybe a bit of landscaping work around the section, but a bit of a homebody.
Nice. And I'm just traveling the country, helping people save lives.
Just.
That's awesome. Right. The last thing we've got to do is we're up to 2,598 subscribers. The most recent subscriber is Sam Shah. So big call out to Sam Shah, who is the assistant manager at Sierra Cafe. So hope you're listening in, Sam, and hope you enjoy the show. I apologize unreservedly if there's been too much safety in this and not enough nonsense. But you can blame Brenton Harrison for that. But that's cool. So I think we did all right, guys. We got through it without his lordship. Great to see you all, and look forward to seeing you again in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.